I'm going to show you a game where Judit Polgar is at her brutal best. But before we look at that game, let me tell you about a discount day taking place on chessbase.com on Tuesday, November the 17th. That's tomorrow, at least when I'm recording it. This is tomorrow, Tuesday, November the 17th. All software is being sold at 25% off. 25% off for 24 hours. Now, of course, that includes my PowerPlay DVD series, or downloads, I should say. There are now 28 of them, 28 in the whole series. You can buy the whole lot in a package at a big discount. You can also buy them individually. Each one has about 5 hours worth of instruction and lots of test positions as well. People really like them. They get really well reviewed. I put my heart and soul into these series, and well, do check them out. If you want to learn openings, middle games, strategy, end games, you'll find something. So if you want to look at the French defense, there's a DVD on that. Sicilian Najdorf. How about the King's Gambit? There's now 2 of those to investigate, or maybe with black. The Queen's Gambit, if you're interested in playing that with black. Loads to look out. So for 24 hours, there is 25% off on Tuesday, the 17th of November. Do check it out. Right, on with the game. So this is Judit Polgar against Ilya Smirin. This was played in the Olympiad, Hungary against Israel. Now, Ilya Smirin is a seriously strong player. He's won so many tournaments. Very dangerous player indeed. And in fact, at this time, actually rated higher than Judit. But watch what happens to him. This is quite incredible. Now, he's played a sharp opening. Starts out as a modern, but now we've transposed into a Pirc. And Judit is playing the most aggressive way against the Pirc, this so-called Austrian attack. And now bishop e3, so that's looking to castle queenside very quickly. And in fact, I mean, this is the most aggressive way of playing this system, and so typical of Judit. b6, queen d2. So you can see the king wants to get over to the queen side very quickly. And c5. So Smirin is attacking white's centre. And now, well, this has strong similarities to the Sicilian, of course, once black exchanges on d4. Now, the most obvious way to recapture here is knight takes d4. And it really does look like a Sicilian position. But Polgar plays bishop takes d4, which looks a little bit unusual because that bishop is vulnerable to attack. Knight c6 played. Of course, Smirin wants to exchange off that bishop so that this one flies across the board. And we know how dangerous that can be in these kind of positions. But incredibly, this is all part of Polgar's plan. She simply exchanges off that bishop, leaving this one without an opponent. Now, if black manages, whoops, I've misfired there. If black manages to get the initiative on the queen side, then this attack is incredibly strong. So why has Polgar done this? Well, it's for the most brutal reasons. She's knocked out that knight on f6 because she wants to attack straight away on the king side. So you could say there's only one defender, but, well, if you're familiar with many dragon positions, often that dark squared bishop is enough to actually defend black's kingside position very well. So let's see, how strong is this? Well, if h5, then white can attack straight away with f5. g6 is a lot weaker, and that already does look very pleasant for white. So Smirin played bishop g4, which doesn't look bad to try and hold up that h-pawn. But Polgar played h5 anyway. So how is how is black going to deal with this? Of course, the idea is just to crack open the H file and then somehow find a way over for the queen to attack here. And it is dangerous. If pawn takes, then bishop e2, it looks kind of slow motion, but white can exchange off that bishop and then get through here. And positionally, if nothing else, it looks very nice for white. So Smirin played bishop takes, and now rook takes bishop. Of course, it's hard to resist this one, but still, white is now the exchange down. But Polgar is always very kind of free with her pieces. She doesn't have any hang-ups about giving away material if she thinks she can attack. Now look how she manages to bring her queen over to the king side. Very nice. Queen d5, gaining a tempo on the knight, and then switching over here. Rook c8 played. I mean, bishop takes knight is interesting, but giving up that dark squared bishop, of course, would be very risky. But rook c8 played. I can understand why Smirin didn't want to give up that bishop. Queen takes, and now the queen has found itself in the danger zone next to black's king. And if bishop takes knight, then we have knight g5, and that's going to force mate straight away. Bishop g7 in order to play h6 in case of knight g5. So how should white continue here? Remember, black can counterattack sometimes with knight b4. One thing that's certainly in white's favour here is that that pawn stands on b6, so the queen can't get over to the queen's side rather very quickly to counterattack the king, and that certainly is in white's favour. e5 from Polgar. So the idea is simply to put that bishop on d3 and start attacking on this diagonal. And it is very, very difficult for black. You know, if h6, then g4 and the attack goes on. Now, Smirin played a tricky move, queen e8. Now, some of you might be familiar with a famous game, Fischer against Benko, from the US Championship in 1963-64, where Benko also tried to defend with a queen on e8. In fact, it was also a Pirt's defense. Austrian attack, strangely enough, now that I think about it. And Fischer won with a spectacular move, rook f6, blocking that f-pawn, because the idea behind queen e8 is that after bishop d3, black will play f5, blocking this diagonal and going for a queen exchange. So let's go back. Queen e8 has just been played. How did Polgar deal with this? Well, she simply stepped back with the queen. And now if f5, then white can go on the attack straight away like this. And actually, this is incredibly powerful. Should be winning for white. So queen h3 played, h6 by Smirin. What now? Well, Polgar resumes her attack on the king side. Bishop d3 looking to play queen f5 and mate. There is a drawback to playing queen e8, of course. It blocks in the rook, and that means it's harder for black's king to shuffle out. Knight b4. So obviously Smirin wants to exchange off that dangerous bishop, so bishop e4. And now it's just, well, I think it's lost already, basically. The threat is to play queen f5, e6, and now f5. So ploughing on, looking to play to f6. If pawn takes pawn, then f6 and queen here. You can see that the rook is stuck, so the king simply can't escape. And after rook takes knight, there's no need to take that rook. pawn to f6. Great move. Now this does involve quite a bit of calculation. You have to make sure that, for example, this move isn't working. In fact, after queen a4, well, you've got to be careful here, but the rook can be taken, and actually white is going to win this position. Bit of calculation needed, but actually this one ends up in simply a winning endgame. White has an extra piece. So after f6, it is winning for white. Queen b5 played, and queen g3. This had to be worked out well in advance because the details here are tricky, but here black resigned. Queen takes bishop, mate threatened. But what you have to see in advance is that the counterattack with rook takes pawn on c2 doesn't actually work, because in this position the king is able to stagger out. That one wouldn't be very good because of knight c3 check, but the king is actually able to just wander across the board like this, and very soon those checks run out. Well, you could play king g1 or bishop d3, and it's going to be mate in a couple of moves. So after queen g3, Smirin resigned. 22 moves. That's all it took for Polgar to smash through into Smirin's position on the king side. Absolutely fantastic. Do check out chessbase.com and the online store there. Discount day for 24 hours, 25% off all software, including my PowerPlay DVDs. You'd be mad to miss it.